Hello and welcome back to another tutorial, another fabulous week of painting. In this lesson I'm going to paint a lovely landscape in a very wide canvas. It's just a nice simple landscape, but there's going to be a lot of impact and lovely clouds, focusing on lovely rich clouds and getting some nice natural light on a landscape. It's just going to be a very simple landscape, but it's a very dark, mysterious kind of a landscape with a little bit of kind of mistiness in the distance, and then perhaps like a nice little roadway or a dirt track or something going off into the distance. Now I'm going to paint it on a canvas, a wide canvas this week, which is 20 by 8, okay? 20 inches wide by 8 inches high. This is just a regular stretched canvas, okay? It's a regular cheap canvas. I've primed it once with a primer, just a regular water-based white undercoat, a little bit of PVA glue mixed in, just a little bit, a little drop, and then give it a very light rub of sandpaper when it's finished. And that makes it really nice and smooth. It's really smooth. It's lovely to work on. So that's what we're going to do this week. So let's crack on and have a bit of fun with this. I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be a nice simple landscape. But we'll kind of have a bit of fun now with the sky and creating clouds, nice strong clouds with some light hitting them, okay? So you could call this a sky tutorial as well. So let's go and have a bit of fun with this. Get your stuff and do try and follow me along if you can. I know I might go a little bit fast for most people, but you can always just pause it, press play, pause it, keep going, you know. So do try and follow me along and let me see how you're getting on. You can send your stuff to me at stephenconway12@gmail.com if you want to show me your stuff and how you're getting on, because I love to interact with all the viewers and yourselves, and you know, see what you're doing and have a chat and you know, this kind of thing. I think it's very I think it's a lot more intimate that way for tutorials, and I love getting to know everyone. So listen, enough of me blabbing on here. Grab your stuff and let's have a bit of fun with this and create a lovely landscape. Okay, here we go. My palette. I'll tell you what colours I have, okay? A nice colourful palette, but I only have a little amount of paint because it's only a small painting, all right? Let's start with this one here. Black, titanium white, Naples yellow, cadmium yellow pale, alizarin crimson, burnt sienna, burnt umber, cadmium red, and phthalo blue. And that's it, that's all we need. I have some turpentine with linseed oil mixed in, okay? Just a little drop of linseed. That just makes it nice and oily. Excuse me. Now, I have some tissue paper and just a few brushes, okay? A handful of different types of brushes. Large, small, medium. You can see, all soft synthetic, okay? Now, let's start, and let me just fix my microphone here now because it's in my way down here. Sorry, I do apologise. No, that should be better. I hope you can hear me okay. I also have a cup of coffee, because no painting is a painting without a cup of coffee, is it? Lovely, very, very nice. So let's crack on. Now, there's the photograph. Isn't that wonderful? A nice rich landscape, lots going on, lots of colour, lots of texture. Let's start. A pencil. I'm going to start with my centre point down here. And I think this looked lovely on a wide canvas. So we have a roadway then coming down. Comes down and it kind of goes around. I'm going to kind of exaggerate the roadway just a little bit more, okay? Because I really want this coming right up very wide. Okay, something like that. Now, this land comes up like that, doesn't it? Comes right up like that. Up and out of the painting. And it comes along then like that. Give it a little bit of a wiggle. Like so. Now, we have a lovely mountain here, don't we? It's a very nice, misty kind of a mountain. Let's go up a little bit higher now with this, okay? Let's just put a very rough suggestion of that. A little bit there. And we have another lovely one then, it kind of comes up like that, doesn't it? And goes along and down. Okay? It's just a suggestion, that's all. Now let's start with the sky. A lovely rough sky. I'm going to take a medium kind of a flat brush, okay? I was going to use my large, but it's just a small sky, so a medium flat brush will do us absolutely fine. I'm going to start with this very bright colour, okay? And it looks like a bright yellow, but I'm going to make it warm. I'm going to take a tiny amount of cadmium yellow, and when I say a tiny amount now, I mean a tiny, tiny amount. Some Naples yellow, lots of white. I don't want to use just cadmium yellow on its own because that will start going green if I mix some colours with it, especially grey. So I'm leaning more towards Naples yellow, but there's a hint of cadmium in there as well. Then I'm going to take a hint of cadmium red, look. Because on the photograph it's really a whitey yellow, but it's warm. So I'm going to keep it warm, and that will neutralise any greens. It'll stop anything from going green, especially when you mix colours in. So let me just, I'm putting in where I can see the bright colours, okay? Put a piece along here. Go right down in here into this lovely, misty landscape off in the distance. And I'm keeping it warm kind of on one side. So as it comes over further here, I'm going to start adding more cadmium red into the mix, okay, and a little more cadmium yellow. That will make it just slightly more, see, slightly more orangey. There we go. I don't want to go kind of up too much into my cloud area because I want the clouds to be nice and rich and dark. I don't want them mixing with this yellow too much. Okay, that's fine. I'm going to leave it at that for now. And by the way, I'm recording on my phone here today. It's just a regular kind of a Samsung phone. It's not an expensive one, but I'm recording on that today because there's the lovely natural light on that camera. I don't know why, it's just a fantastic camera. So I thought I'd try it with that today. The camcorder I have tends to be very sort of washed out or something. Even when I mess around with the exposure settings and that kind of thing, it's very kind of washed out with the camcorder. I don't know why. So I'm trying my phone. Let's just see how it goes. Let's give this a clean. Just dip it in your turpentine once and look, just give it a wipe. Soak up all that paint, okay? Let's mix it nice. Now what I'm going to do is go over here into this colour first, this background colour. And I'm going to leave all my clouds until last, okay? So I'm going to take a little blue. Now, I'm not going to use pure blue on this. I'm just going to make it a very warm bluey mauve, okay? Let's take some white. And I'm going nice and thick with this now, okay? So you can see there's only a tiny, tiny amount of turpentine. I'm picking up a tiny amount just with the corner of my brush. And let me take some cadmium red. I'm not going to go with crimson. I think red, cadmium red, is a nice warmer kind of a tone. And a bit of white. So it's, for all the world, it's like a light bluey grey. Now that's still a bit cold for me. A little bit more cadmium red. So it's like a kind of a plummy mauve-y sort of a hue. Just a little. I'm not going to go crazy now with all of this, because it's just in the corner, that's all. And then I'm going to clean my brush, just relatively clean. Take some white, take some cadmium red, and I'm going to then kind of mix that slightly into the yellow, you see. And because I'm using pink in between, you're not going to end up with any greens. Does that make sense? Because if I was to bring this blue down into this yellow, you'd end up with a mucky green. We don't want that. So I'm going to start softening this kind of light pink now into the yellow first, and then I'm going to kind of soften it across into the blue, you see. And that's then how we can allow the blue to merge into the sky without going green. Does that make sense? Let me take a hint of white and put some white down here. See, and soften it across, soften it upwards, and you can be very loose and very free with this kind of a style, you see. Just very, it's a very rough sky, so don't be too finicky. That's what I'd say. And we can come over here and maybe soften that in just a little here and there, look. Isn't that lovely now? So we've all these lovely tones mixing together, but they're not conflicting. They're not conflicting with each other at all. You see? Isn't that wonderful? So we don't have any green anywhere. It's just nice and warm and soft and almost pastel sort of a feeling. Isn't that lovely? Now, let me mix some clouds. I'm going to start with the very dark side of the cloud, okay? And there's a lot of brown in this. So let me show you. I have some burnt umber, okay? Just a little. And I'm not using much turps in this now because we only have a little piece. The paint on its own will be plenty. So burnt umber, I'm going to take a little black, okay? Or I will just start with little amounts at a time. Don't go right in and pick up loads because you're going to have an awful time trying to bring it back up. So I have a browny grey there now, you see, and I might take a hint of sienna. Take another little hint of white, and I'm just going to go along now and keep mixing this until I get the colour I feel is right for the painting. Now let me try this first. Okay, now I think a little bit more black. I think it needs to be a little more on the greyish side. That's fine. I'm not going to overdo the black in this mix because if you put too much black in, it's going to start going green again by this yellow, because black with yellow make a green, okay? So I'm being very, very careful that is not too much black. I have a decent amount of brown in this now as well, and the white, of course, will neutralize the color as well. So I'm just going to go along now, and I'm going to pop this in. Take a little more white. I'm going to soften it slightly as it comes over. And I'm not copying the sky exactly, in the sense that I'm not copying the direction of the clouds and all that kind of thing. It's just the colours. I like the colours. They're very, very striking. So I'm just focusing really on the colour. Does that make sense? Let me take another little bit of white, and I'll take another hint of sienna, because it's warming slightly as it comes down, okay? And I'm just kind of coming down with little circular movements, you see? Small little circles coming down into that yellow, you see what I mean? Isn't that lovely? Creating a lovely contrast. And with the same colour, I'm going to lighten it slightly with some sienna, okay? And I'm going to come down here into this yellow, where it's slightly warmer, you see? And put a nice rich cloud in just there. And I'm just really scrubbing this along on the dry canvas. And it's lovely to have a slightly drier brush as well sometimes for this, because you can kind of soften colours right in, you see? And you can control the colours much nicer. You can make them stronger or softer. So that's why I only use a little bit of paint at a time. And I don't go into lots and lots of paint, because it makes it very slippery and very mucky and messy. Does that make sense? Okay, now I'm going to take a little more black, and I'm just going to start darkening some of the cloud here and there, okay? And I'm only just taking a little bit. I'm going to add some darkness to this one here, just here and there. Come down here, add a little bit. And the technique for this is really just to go around in little circles, okay? And kind of dance around on the canvas. That gives you lovely kind of puffy clouds. You see? Now I'm going to come over, what I'm going to do is, before I go over into the blue, I'm going to take a little hint of crimson into that colour. And that pinky grey now will complement the blue lovely. Look at that. So we have a slightly pinkier kind of a grey then, over here. But it's still complementing the rest of the sky lovely, isn't it? Put a couple of little clouds around here and there. It's just very cloudy, very, very, very cloudy sky. but it's a kind of a soft sky, if you know what I mean. It's not a real rough kind of a turbulent sky. On the photograph it looks like that, but I'm going to make it kind of slightly softer, more easy on the eye kind of a thing. So I'm just softening around in little circles, okay? And then what I'm going to do is, to complement each side of the sky, okay, I'm going to take some crimson with the blue, and I'm going to pop that slightly mauve, pinky mauve, in here and there, okay? Because what we're doing then is we're complementing the painting. We're bringing colours from left to right, only just slightly, here and there. And we definitely have a lot of mauve in the distance over here, okay? And you can see I did all this sky with just one brush. You don't need all fancy little brushes. You can if you like, but you really don't need lots of fancy little brushes to do a painting. You can just do it with basic cheap brushes, all right? So let me stand back now and take a look at this and see how we're doing. Okay, that's not bad at all. I might darken it slightly. I'm going to really darken it up on top. I'm going to go for some phthalo blue, some crimson, and a hint of black. And that's for the right hand side. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to really darken this up a little bit with some nice purple look. Just along the top, softening it down, hardly touching the canvas, okay? As it comes across then, I'm going to start adding more pink into it because it's going into the browny greys. We don't want it going green or a mucky colour. So look, a bit more pink. Just let that sort of dance around so it's not just in one spot. So kind of let it soften around here and there. That'll give it distance as well. And then, as I come into the brown, I'm going to start adding some black. Okay? Perhaps even a hint of burnt umber. So now we have some nice rich clouds up there, don't we? And let's then just soften some of this together, okay? I'm using a very soft brush. Look, this is my wife's makeup brush. Quite expensive one actually. She wasn't very pleased when I took this from her box, but she has loads. Believe me, she has plenty to go around. Let's just soften some of this in, okay? I'm very gently, I'm controlling how much I want in the softness. In some areas I want it very soft, like in the distance here. But in other areas I want to kind of keep the shape of some of the clouds. So I'm not kind of overdoing it. Does that make sense? Now, let me just give that a wipe on some tissue, and I want to soften just there as well. Now, how was that? You see, we can come back then and add little lights later, okay? I want to go on now and do these lovely hills in the distance while that's nice and wet, okay? So I'm going to take another brush. I'll go with my medium flat, okay? It's like a medium stubby brush. I have a medium stubby brush here, but it's quite splayed out. And I have another one here that's fairly new. So that's a bit too smooth for me. I'm using something with a little bit more of a body to the brush, okay? A little bit of more use. So let's take this and let's go with that colour now off in the distance. I'm going to go with some of this yellow and take a little of the pink. And again, I don't want this too thin. Naples yellow with a little pink and a hint of this mauve, okay, just to sort of dull it down ever so slightly, all right? that's not bad. Let's just, this is quite a thin mix now, you see. You can actually see the canvas through the paint. It's that thin. Go with a little bit more of that, a little bit more of that. And then I'm going to try to soften this with my finger into the sky ever so slightly, look. There. Now I'm going to follow this on down here just for a moment. Then I'm going to start adding some darker colours. So for instance, this mauve is a lovely colour. I like that kind of a tone there. That's a lovely colour, isn't it? So I'll bring the mauve first down into that distant hill. Let it soften through. And again, you can see I'm using very thin paint. It's really a very thin mix. There's hardly anything on my brush. And then I'm going to make a nice dark colour for the back of this. Let's take some phthalo blue, some crimson, and that's a nice, really dark, rich dark plum, isn't it? Because that's very dark back there and it really catches the eye. Let's put that in like that. If you feel it's too cold, just add a little hint of red. Cadmium red even, or crimson, whichever you like. And let's just make a point on that. Soften that down then. Very gently, hardly touching the canvas, look. We'll soften that down into the valley. Okay? Now how's that? Isn't that lovely? Right, dip your brush in turpentine, give it a quick wipe. And let's go up this side. So you see, the nice thing about this painting is everything on the right hand side is kind of slightly cool. Everything on the left hand side is kind of warmer, isn't it? So it's a lovely combination. It's like the left and the right are fighting with each other, but at the same time bringing them together, I think, is a lovely, lovely challenge. Okay, let's go and get some cadmium red. I'll take a hint of Naples yellow, and I'm going to get a hint of sienna, okay? That was probably a bit much, but we'll work with it. Have a look at that now. That's slightly too warm for me, so I'm going to take a hint of burnt umber, and I'll take a tiny, tiny hint of the black, just from the edge here, okay? That's a nicer colour. What I want to kind of achieve in this painting is the very dark ridges against the light sky. That's what I'm trying to kind of get at. That's what I'm trying to see, you know, trying to show the viewer. So I want to really get some nice darks on the tips of the mountains, okay? Let me soften this down. I'm going to soften these together here, look, right? Just like that. So you can see they do almost disappear into the valley, don't they? That's there. Now I'm going to take a bit of that colour and add a slight amount of that colour here, just to again, for the composition, you see? Moving some colours from left to right on the canvas is a good idea. So then I can take some of this rich purple with a hint of the black and put that on this side. And I'm only using little hints of it, okay? Just little amounts. And then let's give this hill on the left a little texture. So look, there's little bits of rock and cliff faces, that kind of thing. Just using the edge of the brush. It's really just a suggestion. I'm only suggesting all of this to the viewer, okay? Now I'll take a little bit of black, put a little bit of black down the back of this one here, and do the same, just suggesting little details in the hill, okay? And how's that? You can, if you like, add some light to this. So just adding a little bit of light into the distance. Let's take some white, a little Naples yellow, and some cadmium red, okay? And I'll show you, with that light colour, I'm going to suggest some light catching the hill here and there, look. So the sun from the clouds catching the hill. The clean up brush, go into it again, and we do the same with this one here. And I'm sort of just kind of dragging my brush along, letting it hit and miss the canvas. So it just gives you a little bit of detail, but it's not actual detail. Does that make sense? It's just giving the hill a little bit of light. And if you want to go right down then into the middle with some Naples yellow, cadmium yellow and some white, you could add some brightness into the valley down there, look. And soften it upwards to the left and to the right, okay? Just giving it a little light. Now, we're done with the back of that. I'm going to go on now and do this side of the hill on the left before we move across over to the right. That's coming on lovely, isn't it, so far? I will go back to this brush that I used for my sky, okay? Dampen it slightly, it doesn't have to be spotless, and we have a lot of dark colour. Let's take some burnt umber, little black, I'll take a little hint of cadmium red. It's not very wet now, there's only a tiny amount of turpentine in this. And I'm going to go like this. I'll come right down there, cross like that. As it comes down, I'm going to start adding some yellow into the mix, okay? Yellow and then some black and some burnt sienna. So the yellow will start adding little hints of a greeny kind of a colour into the landscape, and then the burnt sienna will warm it. Look, you see? I'm going to mix some of that colour now for the rest of the painting. Some cadmium yellow, well, for the rest of this anyhow. Cadmium yellow, a little burnt sienna, and that gives you this very rich kind of autumny green, dark autumny kind of a green. This is just kind of the base, I suppose, for my highlights. And this is dry, it's just paint. My brush is a little wet, but it's not very, very wet, okay? I'm just dragging the paint along all the way across. Go right up there. Let's go through the roadway for now. You see? It's coming together nicely now, isn't it? And what I want to do next is, I'm going to continue that colour across here slightly, alright? I'll dampen my brush just slightly. And I'll come along here. Very nice dark ridge over here, okay? And I'm just doing this now while I have the same colour on my brush and mixed on my palette, just to make it a nice transition from one side to the next. So we have that there now, like that. And what I want to do is, I'm going to take a smaller brush, okay? My smaller brush, it's dry, and I'm going to soften, just clean that properly. I'm going to soften some of this into the distant valley, look. So it's difficult then to tell where it ends. I'm just barely touching the canvas, look, just softening it left and right. And that gives us a nice depth, doesn't it? Okay, I'm going to move to a small brush for now. And I don't know, should I zoom in on this or is it okay? I'll leave it as it is, will I? I'm going to take some black and burnt umber. Okay, with a little turpentine to make it flow nicely. And I'm going to go right off in the distance here and just add a little bit of detail. Well, not detail, but you can see there's some very dark edges off there. I just want to add those in, just to separate them nicely from those distant hills, okay? So it can be little bits of rock and all that kind of stuff off in the distance. And as well on this side, there we go. This then gets dark all the way up, doesn't it? So we can use a bigger brush for that. I'm going to take a little black, go up here. There's lovely dark ridges off up there, way off in the distance. And it's really only a suggestion, okay? There, how's that? Isn't that lovely? Okay, I'm going to continue on and I'm going to come right across this side. I'm going to go up here now with a nice rich dark green. So let's mix a nice rich dark green. Some black. It's lamp black, by the way, in case you're wondering. I'm using lamp black. I'll take a little hint of cadmium yellow. That gives you a rich dark green, and then I'm going to add some burnt umber to this. Now, let's go up here with this. Lovely colour, look at that. Bring that down, nice and dark. Okay, I'm going to darken it even more with some burnt umber. And I'm going to be careful down at the bottom. Look, I'm going to soften it in. Then I'm going to start picking up some cadmium yellow with burnt sienna. The two primary colours in the base of this are cadmium yellow and burnt sienna. I can see a lot of burnt sienna in that painting. It's a very rich autumn kind of a colour, isn't it? Lovely colour. And I'm going to just put that along here. This is really just my undercoat, just to get the dark in. All right. Now I'm going to darken the left side here. I'll take some black and some cadmium red. I'm going to just darken this ever so slightly. Bring it down. Okay, then I'm going to darken with some black and a little phthalo blue, a little cadmium red as well. I'm going to go over here and darken this nice and dark. And let's add a little burnt umber to this one over here. So now you can see it's kind of coming on nicely, isn't it? The next thing I want to do is perhaps with the fan brush add a little bit of texture to this. You can just leave it as it is if you want to go along with your flat brush and just, you know, make it nice and smooth like that. But I'm going to try my fan brush just to give it a little bit of texture, okay? Clean fan brush. Dampen it slightly. Let's get some burnt sienna, some cadmium yellow, and this is going to be a lovely colour now for some of the highlights. And we're going to add some real life to this painting. And I'll take a tiny hint of black in that, okay, just to make it slightly greeny. And I'm going to go, let me see now, I'll start here. I'm just going to start adding a little texture here and there. I'm going up into that darkness. Now you can see the way I'm following the direction of the hill upwards. You see, look? And that will help determine the direction of your land. It's very important, okay? and then just barely tapping as you go up, soften that in. So you can see how the fan brush gives you wonderful detail. Well, it's not detail, but it just gives you wonderful texture, really. Soften that up there. Let's take some burnt sienna and add some burnt sienna, little touches of burnt sienna here and there. Then I'll take a little hint of blue. That'll give me a nice green. So you can see then that darker colour underneath then is forming the shadow for all of this. It's forming the darkness. Does that make sense? So you can see now how fast we've created this lovely texture. Isn't that wonderful? Now I'll stand back and take a quick look. That's lovely, isn't it? So it's the same principle now for the other side. I'm just going to keep it simple, okay? There are lots of different things. There's a little lake in the distance. I might put in some fence posts, but I just want to keep this simple because it's just about getting the atmosphere of a scene. That's what I'm kind of focusing on. That's all I want to achieve, is an atmosphere. Okay, let's pretend like there's a little ditch or something along here, where there's maybe perhaps a stream running along or something like that. And then, you see, I'm just kind of pulling my brush, flicking it down just with the very tip there, okay? Let's take some burnt sienna. Give this some nice warm features. So nice warm kind of reeds and grasses, that kind of thing, here and there. We can even take some black and some burnt umber, and let's pop in some darks. So there could be, just suggest little bits of dark here and there. It could be anything. Let's try sideways, just to mix it up a little bit. Okay, now what I'm going to do next is, with my pointy brush, I just want to suggest that there's little rocks and things like that here and there, okay? So now not everywhere, but look, just little dabs of dark colour with the brush. Just to suggest and just to tell the viewer, because it's a very rough landscape, so just to tell you that there is lots of rough ground, there's lots going on, that kind of thing, okay? It could be, you know, bits of trees and branches, rocks, all that kind of thing. Just kind of have a bit of fun with it, you see, just sort of drag your brush along here and there. It's all about just creating an impression of a scene. That's what I'm trying to achieve here now, just create an impression. And add that dark just there, okay, off in the distance, make it nice and dark. And that dark ridge really catches your eye. Let's put a couple more here. I'm going to put some lights on some of the rocks in a moment over here. So we'll try painting a few rocks. Okay, just one or two. Let's clean that brush. Let's get a nice grey. Let's take a little white, little black, and I'll go with a little cadmium red. I want a warm grey because everything in the scene is quite warm. So I'm going for a warm grey. White, black and cadmium red. Let's just try this now and take a look. Okay? Pop a few lights in just here and there, just to suggest some lights on the rocks, okay? You see? Isn't this so much fun? It really, really is. Just pop a few in here and there. And again, I'm not going to overdo this. It's just a very, very light suggestion, that's all. Okay, I'm going to sit back again now and just take another quick look at this. That's lovely. And I really love the light in the distance. That's really making it come to life, isn't it? Okay, let's move on and do our footpath. I'm going to take my small stubby brush. Firstly, a sup of coffee. And I'm going to use the same grey, okay? Maybe a little bit lighter. So some white. Let me think now. In fact, no, I'll take some phthalo blue. And a little cadmium red. I'll start with that first, okay? Just off in the distance. Let that disappear, okay? There we go. Bring that colour down. Maybe make it slightly darker as it comes towards you. Again, I'm using a very, very dry brush now for all of this, okay? And even go into the browns, you see, and pull the browns out slightly. That will help tie everything together. And it just makes it feel and look more natural. You see? It really does. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to take, let me see now, let me see. I'm going to take my little medium flat brush. I'm going to make a nice dark colour with some burnt sienna, some black, little cadmium red, that rich dark brown, and I'm going to just go in here by the side of the roadway and flick it up gently, look, just to give it a dark section just there where the grasses and stuff are coming up alongside the roadway. Let's get some black. You see, just like so. I'll do the same on that side. Then I'll take a little pointy brush and I'm going to continue that. Just bring this in a bit down here, okay? Just continue that down there like that. Then we have some little kind of a green in the middle, don't we? But I'm going to make it a browny green. I'm going to take some burnt umber, cadmium yellow, and a little black. It's a rich dark muddy green with my small stubby brush, and I'm just going to go down the middle of that and just create that little piece in the center there, you see? Now let me take some burnt umber, some phthalo blue, and give that a little bit of darkness just on one side. Okay. And then with my dry brush, I'm going to sort of just try and soften this into the grey. Just to take the hard edge, I don't want like a simple sharp line. I want it kind of to soften in and almost disappear into the roadway. Okay, just like that. A little bit on that side. Pop a little bit across here and there as if there's some coming up. I'm going to do the same over here. I'm going to just kind of dab that in and soften it in here and there. So again, it's not a solid line. Do you understand? And it just tends to look more natural, I think, when it's done like this, rather than having just a sharp edge. Does that look a bit better? Now I'm going to darken it ever so slightly because it's still very bright. I'm going to take a nice rich dark kind of a plum colour, and I'm going to just soften that colour through here and there and sort of let that disappear off into the distance, okay? That looks a bit better, doesn't it? Now I'll go back to my small brush again, and I actually have to get some black. My black is gone. Isn't this turning out nicely now? A simple scene, but very effective. Take a little bit of black. I'm just going to pop a little bit of black in just here and there, just to suggest little details, just to suggest like little rocks or, you know, stones, that kind of thing. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's not going to be a completely spotless roadway, is it? It's going to be little bits and bobs, kind of showing through here and there. You can kind of dab it with your finger, move it around, just create suggestions of things. Now I'm going to take a very bright colour. I'm going to take some white with some phthalo blue, okay? And I'm going to suggest, let's suggest 1 or 2 puddles. Let's just try it at least. There we are. And then I'll just put a little bit of darkness around the back edge of some of those. Just to kind of define it a little bit, okay? There. That's not bad at all, is it? We'll take even a little bit more white, and just to show them off a little bit more. Okay? Now next I want to put a bit of a fence along as well. I'm going to take some white, some phthalo blue, a little cadmium red, and with that very bright bluey kind of a colour, I'm going to put the impression of a fence just there. Now okay, that's a bit bright, but I can darken it down a bit. You see, I'm going to pull the colour underneath through. Does that make sense? Another little one there. Then I'll take some darker colour. I'll go with a bit of black and pop some black on the back side of some of these. Well, all of them really. Just give them all a bit of shadow. And I'm going to kind of soften them into the ground here and there. Then let's just pop a little bit of a wire or a string or something in between. There we go. Nice and simple. Now I think we need somebody walking. I think we do. First I'm just going to add a little bit more dark to some of these rocks. Okay. Just to help them stand out a little bit more. And I'm going to take some burnt sienna, tip of my brush, and let's just imagine there's some nice little kind of flowers or something like that just tucked in around some of the rocks. And do the same over here again, just to help the composition. Also, some Naples yellow, and pop 1 or 2 little flowers, kind of, you know, these things on the top of the grass. I forget what they're called, but they could be just kind of here and there. Okay, that's enough. Let's put someone walking, shall we? How about that? First I'll do a little bird, because I always like to do a little bird on my landscapes. Okay. And we'll put someone walking. I'm trying to think of colours. How about just a Naples yellow on top, just so the person stands out. And remember, when painting people, it's basically just a case of painting the shape of a carrot. That's the best way of painting someone in the distance, okay? A figure walking in a landscape. Look, the shape of a carrot. That's probably the easiest way. And a little dot for the head, okay? And at the moment he's just floating in midair, isn't he? Let's just help him sit down a little. We'll take some of that dark grey and let's put a little bit of a shadow coming off backwards here. Okay, like so. And perhaps add a little bit of shadow to one side, okay? You know, you don't have to go crazy with this, but it's just a nice way of painting someone in the distance. And that, my friends, is it. I need to sign. Now, wasn't that so much fun? It was so easy yet so much fun. I will have to let the paint dry, I think, just a little before I can sign my name properly, but you can kind of see, you can get the idea. There. And we're finished, my friends. I'll zoom in and show you this beautiful landscape that we have created. I'm on my phone, so I apologize about the zoom. And there we are. Isn't that wonderful? Nice warm colours in the sky with some nice cool colours. And you can see how they really kind of help each other. They bounce off each other, don't they? Nice simple rocks. Again, it's just little dabs with the brush. That's all it is. Okay? So just try to keep it simple. You can see I didn't spend too much time on this. It's just sometimes keeping something simple is the best way of painting a landscape. Let me turn the phone here so you can see me. I hope it doesn't mess up. I hope you can see me okay. I hope you can see me okay. Thank you so much for watching. This was a real pleasure to paint, it really was. I'll frame this. This is going to be a stunner when it's framed. I have no frame made yet, but I will go to my shed in a moment and make a frame for it. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed watching this, and I hope you've got some hints and tips. If anything else, a little encouragement, okay? Just try it, don't be afraid. It's only paint, it's not going to bite you. Go on, I'll see you next week again for another new tutorial. I have something nice coming next week, maybe a 2 or 3 part painting. I think it's going to be a real eye catcher. So stay tuned and do subscribe. If you want to support me in any way, you can pop over to Patreon. There are lots more tutorials there. It's just a way for you to support me, and I really appreciate that. Thank you, and God bless, and happy painting, my friends.